everyone. My name is Padmini Nidumolu, and I'm the co-founder of Lean and Agile, an initiative formed to support women by the women for the women truly. And as part of this initiative, we have an initiative within that we have started in 2019, which is called Lean and Agile 100 or LIA100, where we are bringing 100 women from across the world to share their stories, their journeys, their challenges, and the learnings that they have gathered over years in a hope to bring them to the community so it can benefit somebody somewhere in some fashion. So, as part of this initiative, today we have an incredible woman who has done so much as part of her career. Her name is Ivana Gancheva. Hi, Ivana. How are you?
Hi, Padmini. Very, very good and very happy to be with you.
Same here. Ivana, why don't I introduce you to the audience here today? And then we can dive right into your story. Is that okay?
Perfect.
All right. Okay, so Ivana Gancheva, and we are celebrating this leader today who is passionate about working with people over titles. She actively coaches and mentors leadership, including C suite leaders. She brings energy, passion, and most importantly, the ability to disrupt the status quo and enable genuine growth within the organization. She comes from the country which is known as the Land of Roses, as the Rose Valley near the town in Bulgaria called Kazanlak. That town produces 85% of the world's rose oil. And that's nothing but Bulgaria for you all. And if you ever happen to visit Bulgaria, I think that town is a must see for us. Please join me in welcoming Ivana Gancheva. Hey, Ivana, thank you so much again for joining us.
Hi, Padmini, and thank you for having me. It's an honor to be added in the list of so many great women in the area of agile and lean, and this
It's an honor for us as well to bring you. Awesome. So let's dive into some of the aspects that we want to learn about you, Ivana. So I'm interested to know the scope of agile application and transformations in the organizations in Bulgaria, right? Is it at a stage that you would like to see as an agile transformation leader?
it's a it's an interesting question. So for 13 years, I lived in Norway, and I came back to Bulgaria about 2.5, 3 years ago. And in the period I've been here, I've been quite dedicated to a place that I worked in. So I couldn't say that I'm the most, that I'm knowledgeable enough to answer well enough to this question. But what I have seen from the areas that I have been able to observe and the communications in the community here, it seems like there's places that are in different levels of adoption, um, and I would say that generally compared to Western Europe, I would say that it's the wave has come a bit slower, but I think it's catching up pretty quickly. I see more and more young people choosing to grow in this area, which makes me very happy. And I don't know if this is rather a hope rather than a reality, but it is my belief that I observe, at least in some spaces, more communication about organizational agility and improvement rather than necessarily agile and methodologies and like the how should I say, the more business and sales part of how it should be versus, I do believe that there's more people who are talking about real improvements of a flexible, agile organization rather than just now we need to do Scrum.
Yeah, yeah. No,
And
that's
I'm
that's that's a
experiencing.
positive thing. Yeah, it's a very encouraging trend, right? So it's about being agile than doing agile. So as
Exactly.
you said, Scrum as frameworks, but they forget that being agile is more important. So on another note, right, you've had a very heavy focus on people component of agility and on how to get people to see and think differently. As an example, if you are if you're looking at lean startups learning to observe and influence complex systems, it's a different way of exploring. Can you elaborate on the people aspect of agility?
I think um, I think the people aspect and the business aspect is very highly intertwined. If the business doesn't have that attitude, um, to have its whole system being able to be flexible, and I really would like to focus on the not even the principles but rather the values of the ideas of how can we adopt to change, how can we um, ensure that in different situations we can adapt, we can find better ways, and we also challenge ourselves continuously rather than just now we're going to make this big revolution once in a blue moon or something. And I think at least in my work, these two are extremely connected. How do the leaders, the owners of the businesses, what is their attitude towards their business and their people together? Like you can't have one and the other. It's not about just people being happy, because there are different ways to make people in the organization happy. But what is the example that you give? What are the basic agreements of how we adapt to new situations, but also how we hear each other, so that the people side is very connected to how we approach the business reality. For example, the comparison between I'm going to be better than my competitors, or I'm going to be better than myself tomorrow, better than who I am today, right? It's a it seems like this one thing that might not really have a direct connectedness connection to the people in the office, but in fact it does. It's a part of the cultural message. It's a fact. It's a part of how do we address our whole agreement about having this organized labor in one place. um, so when it comes to people, I would say it's business and people, like they always work together and they reflect each other.
Yeah, yeah,
So I guess I would focus on how we approach business together with maybe the more concrete things with people.
yeah. No, that's very profound, Ivana. And I know we were chatting a little bit, earlier, and you've always been active in the community, right? You try to organize events, you try to organize places where people can come in and learn from each other. And Bulgaria, relatively, probably a smaller agile community, but you're still trying to bring, the community together. um, what would you like to share with people across the agile community, particularly women who are apprehensive to start something new on their own, because we struggle with few internal barriers? Please share with us, how did you do it? And you probably had self doubts also, but can you share with us, how was the experience like?
Yeah, we've had with you a few chats about that. And I always like to say that I've been lucky to be in the right place, right time, and and just meet people who are very supportive and have said, "Hey, let's speak at this conference." And then I found myself, creating I think the first one was probably a workshop actually,
Hmm.
and but I think also part of the luck is putting yourself out there and risking it. When it comes to organizing things, both local, in 2011, I remember with a few friends from the community, which said, let's create a bigger, more open space like conference. So we started in Berlin, the first one. We sat together and said, okay, let's create a concept. I think it was from another conference where the idea had come, but we got together and set it up, and it was Agile Lean Europe.
Hmm.
And I think they kind of go hand in hand for a lot of people in the community. The passion of, organizing groups of people and having an opportunity to share something you believe is valuable, you've learned on the stage with others. I guess what I would say is that it's always a learning experience. I think for some people it might be easier, but for others, speaking, for example, at a conference might be quite a challenge. Um, Organizing might sometimes feel like a big responsibility or a risk. But in any case, and I think this is important to say, for me, both for men and women, I would say just try it out. Knock on some doors if you have an
Yeah.
idea. Just check out, especially in communities, and I don't think it's only for our community, it's many other communities. I've seen that when there is a will, there is a way. Maybe verify the idea you have. Is it you know do others find it valuable? And if it feels right, just try. The worst that can happen is that maybe the event doesn't happen, or you just do your next presentation, and you'll always learn more. So
Yes.
I think it's a never ending learning experience.
Yeah, yeah. And I was chatting with somebody earlier, and this is exactly what we talked about. Which is around public speaking or doing anything involving a large scale is never going to be easy, right? Each time you face that fear in
Yeah.
yourself, and I think the only solution is to do it over and over again, so improve, right? You become better each time, so it adds to your confidence each time. So that I can resonate with that. um, so you work with C-suite executives, you work with leaders in the organizations. So Ivana, can you share a little bit about, has it been challenging working with the leaders, and also what are the challenges that the leaders have? So I'm talking about both perspectives. What are your challenges in making them think in the lines of being agile, and what are the challenges that they faced as well?
Hmm. Hmm. Let's see. So I normally struggle with the labels and the boxing, and for me, it's
Yeah,
very important that um, everyone I work with is this unique individual, right?
right.
Or every group that I work with is a unique um, um, collective or group of individuals, whether it's a team or it's a group
Yeah.
um, or a board. And I while I was listening to your question, I was actually finding it difficult to say this is the one thing,
Sure.
because
Yeah. Maybe you should pick just one, because I know there are many. It's not
yes,
easy to just pick,
yeah.
one.
Okay, so the one that I've seen quite often is the misunderstanding that you bring agile and that'll fix your teams and make them faster.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
They consider
misunderstand
that as a silver bullet, right? That'll fix everything.
and not only that, but also that um, we will bring these experts, they will help us out, and they will make it great. But I think what I've observed sometimes, or more than once, is how leadership groups underestimate the amount of work or the amount of shift that they will need to do themselves
Yeah.
if and only if they don't have intrinsically the values in their group.
Yep.
Now, you might have places in which actually those values and this way of working comes in very intuitive. It just hasn't been recognized before. But
Yeah.
in cases where the distance on a cultural and a value level is quite long, then the management or the leaderships or the owners, that, let's say, the decision makers, whatever the titles are, will need to put effort in the transformation. And I don't really like the word transformation because it implies A to B.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
but in the, let's say, the change or the improvement or the path to the new space or
Yeah.
the new direction that they would like to have.
Yeah, I think, you bring up a great point, right? Transformation has become such a buzzword, and you're so right. Transformation implies that you have transformed, you have arrived. There's nothing else to improve, but you're right. It's a journey. So you are not the same as you were yesterday. So it's a journey, it's a path, and that north star will drive you, not necessarily show you that this is your destination, because honestly there's no destination, right? It all depends on where you want it to be at that point of time, which could quickly shift the next day, right? With all the constant changes like the one we are facing today with the pandemic. So yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
I also think we have kind of moved, like if you say, let's say 10, 20 years ago, we were talking about bringing in a consultant with a best practice and they're going to tell us how to implement it. We're going to be this much better, more efficient, more this, more that. I think we're now in the world where we're talking about how do we strategically build habits, ways of thinking, ways of working, ways of communicating with each other, even if you like, of ensuring that we know how to improve. It's not even about the state we're going to get to. It's
Yeah,
more about how can we lift up our skill set of becoming better. And yes, we'll figure it out also for today. But we want to build in skills, build into our systems and our groups and organizations skills that are going to bring us higher in the long run. So
yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
and I find this really, really fascinating and attractive as a challenge.
Yeah, yeah, it is challenging, but I think it's a very valid challenge, right? But and then most of us, face that as part of our transformation journey. One of the things that always intrigued me, Ivana, is the variation in responses I get when I ask about, what are some of the internal barriers that you fight with, and none of us probably can get a solution just like that, but at least we have a way to address them. We have a way to travel with them, right? Not against them. And for the benefit of our viewers today, can you share, one of those barriers that you faced in the past or facing now, and how do you handle it?
Um, let's see. Are we talking about work, life, or any?
Anything really, anything, as long as it's internal to you and you have kind of addressed it. You probably didn't solve it, that's fine, but
Hmm. I think the first thing that came to mind was having a on-camera interview. Uh,
okay.
and how do I deal with it? I guess I just work with it,
Yeah.
uh, but it still is not necessarily the most comfortable, um, and I don't know why. It's just the way it is. Um, but when it comes to work, I think the way work in life, I guess, the way I see it is when I see a barrier, and there are always barriers we discover, especially if we are like me, a bit more enthusiastic about opening the levels of our opportunities all the time and trying out new things. I think what works really well for me is accepting them as an opportunity. Like
Yeah.
always see them as, okay, so what are we going to do about this now? And I think sometimes it's a perfectly sane and healthy approach to choose. I will accept this and not do anything about it, but I will stop having a battle with it.
Hmm.
um, but overall, my most common approach is, okay, let's create some opportunities to challenge myself, to see, how can I overcome this. But I think there is a bit of a trick of understanding whether this is a realistic barrier.
Yeah.
For some reason right now it comes to mind, um, the idea of, for example, asking people who are rather introvertedly behaved. I think this is less and less common, and I'm very happy about that. But I think there was a very long period of time, even long before I was born, where, in a sense, the marketing was you need to behave in a more extroverted way. And I would say that this is not a healthy barrier you need to work with.
Yeah,
You need to find places that can appreciate and figure out how to work um, together with you, rather than seeing it as a barrier. I need to be more extroverted. So I think what's important is also to figure out, is this really a barrier, or is this something that I believe would bring me some value but might actually work against me.
yeah, yeah.
I made it a bit more philosophical, I guess, but
No,
and
I think you bring up an extremely important point here, Ivana, and thank you for bringing it up, right? So, what the society or an external community views as a barrier might not be a barrier for you. And I think your message implicitly there is that any organization, kind of trying to be inclusive, should be inclusive of the personalities. And some are introverts, some are extroverts. But I think, not all barriers should be viewed as barriers, right? So, we need to kind of work with it and work with people who are struggling with those barriers, if at all we view it as a barrier. No, that's a very powerful message right there. Thank you for bringing it up, right? If you recognize it as a barrier, awesome, you're working on it, but not every barrier that is perceived to be a barrier is a barrier. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
No, thank
I
you.
think what's important is to understand whether it is something that that will actually make you grow crossing that
Yeah,
barrier, or is that created out of it's like created out of external messaging which might not apply to you. So I think it's not always so obvious, I guess, but
yeah,
exploring it and experimenting with it will help you also figure out
yeah,
better.
yeah. Thank you, Ivana. And is there any message or anything that you live by that you want to share with our community?
That sounds very profound. I don't know if I have a specific like um, one sentence
Sure.
that I live by. Um, I think it's I think I really what attracts me in other people, and I believe might work for me very well, is just being as much as you can, being yourself, being authentic to your values, to the extent that you can afford that, and hopefully nothing stops you to do so.
Yeah,
Um, and then you happen to discover people that you connect well with, spaces that appreciate you for you rather than
yeah.
just some so yeah, if I need to make it a bit shorter this time, it's just have the bravery to be the authentic you,
Oh,
um, and constantly learn and grow, experiment with you,
yeah.
experiment with
Connect with yourself.
pieces you yeah, the pieces you believe is you,
Yeah.
which might have in a younger age been disciplined as
Yes.
behaviors, and things that truly resonate. You feel, hey, this is actually more comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that is so relevant for our times. And I think there is no better way to be than be yourself because everybody else is taken. And this is something that I've read somewhere,
I
right?
like that quote. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I read this somewhere. It's not mine, but that just stuck with me. Just be yourself because everybody else is taken. Why do you want to be like anybody else at all, or anything else at all? So, thank you so much, Ivana. That was very profound. Thank you for being with us, and I hope you build a great, huge agile community in Bulgaria. And we will have more and more to learn from you and the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Padmini. It's been an honor to be with you.